Hey, welcome to the Ripple Effect Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Harper. I am smiling because today's guest is an actual ripple that happened in order to make this all happen. Quick story. Lisa Alonji, good friend of mine who I knew way back in high school, had discovered Jen Lehner's work and just fell in love with it. And she had mentioned it to me and she's like, I really think you would hit it off. I think she would be an excellent guest on your podcast. Sent me a link to it and I'm like, I'm in 100%. If you think she's someone that would benefit our audience, then I would love that. And she was so gracious in her introduction. Jen was so responsive and so wonderful. And just a personal word of gratitude towards Jen and her team. I had a number of things that came up thanks to some unexpected health situations with my dad and being out of town unexpectedly and all that craziness. Jen and her team were awesome. I had to reschedule this, I think, 2 or 3 times. So I'm so grateful that she just didn't give up on me and that she continued to say, whenever it works, let's make it happen, and was so accommodating. Jen is really, really phenomenal person. She is actually, she calls herself a digital marketing and systems strategist. Having followed her work both on YouTube and on her podcast and seeing the work her and her team are doing, I just cannot wait to get into conversation with her. She is a dynamo. And I am so grateful that someone that is as successful and as busy as she is has made time to come on this show. One of the beautiful things about this show is that you get to meet so many great people making such a huge difference out in the world. Not always just because of what they do from a professional perspective, but because of the kind of people that they are. And I know that Jen is going to be one of those and then some. I also have a special thanks to Lisa for actually even thinking of me as someone that Jen should know and that I should know Jen. And those ripples are never lost on me. So I want to make sure that you guys know that if you have someone that you think would be a great guest for the Ripple Effect podcast, always send them my way, because if they come from you, then they get priority from me. And I am grateful for those suggestions. I'm grateful for topics that you want to hear. And that's the whole purpose of this show, is to provide value, to create a service for you, and hopefully a whole bunch of ripples along the way by introducing you to some amazing people, game changers out there in their own rights, ripplers that are doing amazing work. And I promise you, this is one of the most amazing things I've ever done with my life, is to do this show and meet these people. And I just can't wait to get into conversation with Jen. So with no further ado, let's do that. Let's jump into our conversation with Jen Lehner. All right, guys, I am super excited to have Jen Lehner in as our guest today to the Ripple Effect podcast. Jen, welcome. How are you doing
Thank you.
today?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks, Steve.
Well, I am super excited to meet you. And I first want to start with a sincere form of gratitude. You were so great in rescheduling a couple of times because I had some stuff going on with my dad. And I really, really appreciate your flexibility and your team. Oh my gosh, they are amazing to work with. So,
Well, thank you.
obviously they have a great leader, but those folks represent you so, so well.
Thank you for that.
Well, this whole interview came about because we both know Lisa Alonji, right? And she is
Right.
fascinated with your work. And she had reached out to me even before she made the email introduction and said, I have somebody that I think you're absolutely going to love. And I got the link to your website, went to your YouTube, listened to your podcast, and she was absolutely 1000% right, which she always has been. I've known her all the way back to high school. So I knew a referral from her was a good one, but I am so grateful. How did you and Lisa get acquainted?
I think when I first moved to the town that I live in, which is Shaker Heights, Ohio, um, my real estate agent knew her, and somehow we ended up at lunch, the 3 of us. That was the first time, and then, my daughter started going to the same school where her daughter is, and my daughter was new there, and she was, like, the one and only face that I recognized, and, she was like, come here, kid, let me show you around. So, not that, I mean, I'm probably older than she is, but anyway, she, yeah, so she showed me around and welcomed me, and we reconnected at that point.
So it really started with a ripple with you two as well. So that's pretty cool. I
Yeah,
love it.
I love this whole ripple concept that you got going. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. I mean, it has applicability for sure, and I look forward to talking a little bit more about it as we proceed today. But I am curious, like, what? So how did you end up in Ohio? Where did you come from, and what led you to move to Shaker Heights? Is that right?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
Gosh, I wish it was sort of like a one sentence answer, but the truth is, like, I spent my entire childhood moving. So I think I was in like 13 schools before I was like even in 7th grade or something. And so spent my childhood like that. So when I met my husband, who is from Ohio, he was working in Fort Wayne, Indiana at the time, and I was living in Charleston, South Carolina. And I thought, what once it became clear that he was the one, I was like, well, this is especially great because he's got a good company job and we're going to stay put. And the rest of my life is going to be, I'm gonna put down some roots.
Yep.
I did enjoy all that moving when I was a kid, but I thought, all right, we're gonna create a family and we're gonna give those kids roots, and I was really excited about that. And then about a year into our marriage, he said, there's this great opportunity in Seattle, but it's like a 2-year gig. Do you wanna go? And the truth is I really do like change, and,
Sure.
I'm good at moving, and Seattle, like, what a cool place. So I
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah, let's do it." Well, Seattle then turned into Toronto, then turned into Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, then turned into Columbus, Mississippi, then turned into Cleveland, Ohio, and that was because of his job opportunities at the time, and also his family was here, getting older, his folks needed him and needed us, and, yeah, and so that was, like, 14 years ago, and this is the longest I've ever lived anywhere in my life, so,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
And obviously like it, even, even with the winters. I mean,
No,
you
no,
went to
no,
some
let's
places
get
that didn't
totally
have as
clear.
brutal a winter, right?
No, let's get clear on that. Uh, I love I it was novel at first and it was cool and I made the best of it and I put on my snowshoes and I would go cross country skiing right side of my front out of my front door. And of course the kids loved sledding and it was a novelty and it lasted several years and I really enjoyed it. And then somewhere along the way, I was like, wait, I hate this. Oh, it was like, wait, actually, I don't like this at all. And it's because it's not the cold, it's not the snow, but anybody from Cleveland knows we have no sun.
Yeah.
And, people talk about how dark it is in Seattle. No, Cleveland is a million times worse than Seattle. We get a lot of rain, we get a lot of cold, and we get no sun. So we
Oh,
actually did 2 years ago, we bought a place down south just because I mean, I have to I gotta get out of here when in January, February. It's too much.
where did you buy your place down south?
Sullivan's Island, which is really like 6 miles outside of Charleston.
Oh, how nice. Oh, that's beautiful. So
Yeah.
you spend your winters there and
Not yet because my
nice.
youngest is still in, she's got 2 more years of school. She's a sophomore in high school.
Ah,
But, like, she has what, like, 2 years, 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days, and 6 hours,
yeah.
but who's
Not that
counting?
you're counting, right?
No,
Yeah.
right, and then the minute that she graduates, we're gonna do the proper snowbird thing because it is beautiful in Cleveland in the summer.
Yep.
It really is. It is lovely here, but, uh, yeah, no, I you can have the rest
You
of
can
it.
have the winter.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a big believer in trying to get an idea of kind of the origin story. And so all that moving around that you did, I'm assuming that you come from a military family background?
No, no, my
No?
dad was just like he was a textile engineer, but it wasn't like he was with one company, so he was
Yeah.
just really, he would just take a new opportunity, get excited about it, and drag, my mom and 4 kids with him. 5 kids. Yeah, 5 kids. Had to think about that. I have 4 older brothers. So, yeah, he would just drag the 5 of us.
4 older brothers. I'm sure that was lovely growing up, having 4 older brothers and dating and all that good stuff.
Yeah, no, you know what? They were so much the gap was so much that I by the time I was like 12 years old, I was just me at home.
Oh,
So it was more like I was an only child,
only child.
honestly.
How
Yeah.
big's the gap to your next closest sibling?
6 years, 7 years?
Ah, yeah. So we're
Yeah.
very, very close. My parents had my oldest sibling is my brother, and then 2 sisters, and my next closest, my closest that I am to my sister is 10 years gap.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was kind of like definitely the mistake baby for sure.
Yeah. Well, they wouldn't admit to calling me a mistake, and I know they were thrilled because they got a girl, but, you know.
Uh, well, so tell us a little bit about your business and what led you down this path, because I mean, you are doing a lot of really, really cool stuff. So I'm anxious to learn more about that.
Thank you. Well, so what I do is I basically help solopreneurs, small businesses, entrepreneurs grow their businesses using smart digital systems and tools. With a big focus on AI right now, as you would imagine. It started almost 13 years ago with kind of just social media because what I found was there were just a lot of business owners that were clueless about how to use social media. I mean, now it's just so you don't even, I don't even think we say digital marketing anymore because it's just marketing because it's just implied that if you're going to do marketing, it's going to be digital. There will be a digital component or it will be mostly digital. Right. But back then it was still like people just didn't really have a clue. So I started doing consulting. And then after consulting, I realized that, it just even though I was working for myself, it felt like I had like 10 little bosses, like instead of one boss, I had 10 bosses and it didn't feel really scalable. So that's when about my second year in business is when I started focusing on creating digital products. So online courses and a membership site. And that's when it got really fun and exciting because I could still share knowledge and help people and teach people, but now I had this product that people could purchase and I could, there was no limit,
Yeah,
I could sell as many as I could sell. And that was very fun. That has been
that's
very fun.
awesome.
Yeah, and so I've pretty much stuck with that, although, I have missed consulting and one-on-one stuff, so I always have a little bit of that in there because it's good for me. I like connecting with people. I'm a people person, so just being locked up in this office, recording day after day is not gonna give me what I need.
Yeah,
I need to be with people, and so I do a bit of consulting still as well, and the way that I stumbled into that was really I was a stay-at-home mom raising my kids. I have 3 kids, and, but all along the way, I was always dabbling in all of the technology that was emerging because my first son was born in 2000. And so, I was early on eBay. I was, the first one on the street to get email. I just was always into
you're
it. And I
not a
wanted,
laggard in any way.
I'm not a what? A
A
laggard?
laggard in any
Yeah,
way. You're
no,
you're an
no.
early adopter. It sounds like on all
Well, at least
technology.
I'm not with this stuff, I'm not a laggard. I mean,
Yeah,
I just because it's fun, it's like toys for me, it's exciting. And so, so through the years, I would reach out to the kid's teacher and say, "Hey, do you want a classroom website? I'll do one for you." Or, "Do you wanna send out an email to the parents? I'll help you set up a beautiful one in Constant Contact," and I was always just doing stuff like that. And then I realized one day, like when people started asking me to help them with stuff that I could actually make money,
yeah.
from this, that I knew some things people didn't. And that led to the consulting, which, yeah. And that's kind of how it all began.
I love that. Was there something specific that sort of drove you down this particular channel, or was it sort of a culmination like, hey, I've got skill sets here and skill sets there, and if I apply that, it could really benefit entrepreneurs, that are really trying to build their business but don't have a clue on how to do it?
No, it just, what was so fun and it really was a luxury for me was that I just was throwing spaghetti at the wall at the beginning and like, like, well, let me try this. Well, let me see if, let's talk about this. Let me do a training on this. And really what was so informative in the beginning was I had started, this was before I had ever charged a single dollar, but I started a cash mob and I named it Flash Cashers. And
Wait, a cash mob?
a cash mob.
Okay.
So the way that it works, I mean, you've heard of these where people will just show up at a business, right? And
Uh-huh.
just throw money at the business and the business is surprised and it makes their day and it'll make the news. But then after that, then what? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I did sort of a take on that because we had this new pie shop in town. And I remember driving by this pie store and I thought, uh, I need to make a note to go in there. I pass it every day, but I never stop. Why don't I stop? Well, because I think the parking there is terrible and it's just not in my usual loop. I go
Yeah.
Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, Heinen's. I've got like my circle of places that
Yeah.
I go and it wasn't
It's
it,
outside the bubble.
it kind of was outside the bubble. So I was like, I was in the shower as so many of our good thoughts come are when they come to us. And I thought, well, how people need to visit this place to know that it's good. So I went in, I tried the pie, it was really good, and that's when I was like, we should do a cash mob. So I branded it, built a website for it, I built an email list for it, and this was locally and in order to make it sort of sustainable or mean something for the business, we didn't want to just take them off guard. So I would schedule it. I would go in, tell them, "Hey, you've been chosen for this," and eventually we did let the community vote on who would be the next recipients. Um, and it was like, "You've been chosen, but here's the requirements for you. You need to offer a like certain discount minimum of like 10% during these set hours. Like, so for 2 or 3 hours, you need to offer something significant of a discount. You need to allow me to decorate, play music, and put up some signage." And they always agreed, of course. And here's what we learned is like once you got people, so that pie shop that day, that first one that we had, the line was literally wrapped around the building, and
Wow.
they ran completely out of inventory, but what was so great was that once people got a taste of it, then now they are part of they
Yep.
are in the bubble, right? And they could see that actually there was parking, that, it's just was behind the building, but you couldn't see it from the street. And so we did about, 2 dozen of these flash mobs, or it was called flash cashers. And I got inside the businesses. So I was seeing like, wait a minute, they need marketing, they need help with this. And I was talking to the business owners. So
Brilliant.
it just that got me sort of into the local business community. And then my very first real client, well, not real because she didn't pay me, but I said to her, here's my proposition. I was like, if you could shoot, it was a boutique that I loved. It was like this really funky boutique. And I said, if you'll just let me come in and do your marketing for 3 months. I was like, because she had nothing. I was like, I'll do a website, I'll do a Facebook page, maybe we could do an Etsy store. Um, and then but what I'm gonna ask of you is that you just let me do what I want. And when we're done at the end of 3 months, if you're happy with the work that I did, I just ask that you share it with the other merchants on the street. And write me like a testimonial or something. And she's like, yeah, sure. She's super laid back. Well, it was very successful because I mean, the great thing was like she had a great product. Her store was great. So it was easy for me, right? Like that was just like a super easy situation. It didn't take much to get a lot of traction. And so I never had to market my consulting services after that. I just stayed booked.
That's
Um,
brilliant. Oh,
so
I love that.
and that is sort of a tip I give to like students who are like marketing majors and that sort of thing. If they can afford, to work for free for 3 months, just make the deal so good that they can't say no.
That's I love that line. That is such a valuable piece of advice for them, right? Because you're going to learn so much not only about the business and but also yourself in terms of that, stick to itness and your commitment to what you've, promised in terms of results. And That's brilliant. And so do you still do those, or you don't need to do those
No,
because
I
things have
would.
taken off?
Well, yeah, it's not, it's just, I'm just too busy with other stuff. I didn't have anything. That was it for me,
That
when
was
I
your
was
hook.
doing those. Yeah, so I don't have time for that anymore. But it was definitely fun while it lasted.
That's awesome. So you use that as the stepping stone to really kind of get your footing into this venture. What has kept you moving in this direction? And for those that maybe haven't yet checked out your website, what's the what's the one thing you'd want people to know about what it is that you do and offer through your firm?
Right now, it really is all about, everything is coming back to AI, and as much as, a lot of people probably don't wanna hear that, the thing is that I just feel like this has to take priority right now for everyone,
Yeah.
in that we all have to know how to use it,
Yep.
period.
Yep.
It doesn't matter whether you like it, whether you think it's ethical or unethical, whether you think, it's terrible for the planet, and by the way, it is. I mean,
Yep.
these things are, I mean, both things are true. There's a lot of things that are really bad and scary about it, but also it's here, and you have
And
to know
not
how to
going
use it
away.
because
Yeah.
it's going to affect every facet of our life. And I say that without trying to sound too hypey, because there's so much hype too about
Yep.
it, but at the same time, I almost feel like I can't hype it enough because I don't think enough people really understand what's about to happen. And and it's a way of, like, just self-preservation and
Sure.
not even just, from a entrepreneurial standpoint or as a business owner, but, just a person moving through the world, everything. And so that's really where my focus is, and I help people. I've got, like, online classes, and I have a membership site where I do, like, weekly calls, and I answer people's questions. And really what I enjoy is, right now, is if I'm working with a company, let's say, and they want to integrate AI, but they aren't really sure where to begin and what makes sense. um, I love, or they have a problem, I love trying to figure out what is the AI solution to that problem. It's really fun. It's like, solving the Wordle every day. I mean, I just that is, like, super fun for me. So,
Yeah.
to answer your question, I help them with these online courses. I work directly with companies also, like, either doing implementation for them, consulting with them on how to do it, um, and, that's basically it right now.
Well, and you have an AI course that you've got that people can take. It's an on-demand course. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I do think a lot of our Ripplers, we've talked about AI on the podcast before. There's a lot of head scratching around how it's going to impact, is it going to take my job? Is it, like you said, is it, ethical? Is it good? Is it bad? And I think there is a lot of interest to have someone like you that's a subject matter expert in it sort of lead you down the path so you have an understanding of what it is. Yes, it could be scary if it's an unknown factor, right? But at the end of the day, if after you get some experience with it, you understand how to utilize it and leverage it, you really need to be on top of those things in order to stay out ahead of the curve so you don't get bowled over by it.
Yeah, and the course that you're talking about, it's just it's a short, AI 101, right? So it's perfect for beginners, but there's also some stuff in there for anybody who feels like they already sort of understand ChatGPT and Claude and some of those. There's also there's stuff in there for everybody. But here's the thing, that if any of your Ripplers are feeling intimidated about stepping into AI, or feeling a little worried about their own abilities, what is, I think, such good news for, I'm 56 years old, so people my age and up, all right? But let's say Generation X, that's what we are, right?
Yeah.
Or me, Generation X. Okay. So what's good news is that all of this AI stuff that you're hearing about is, when people say AI right now, what they're talking about are large language models.
Yep.
And what that means is that they operate just on natural language. So honestly, I feel like we have an edge for once where it's not like, oh, I don't know how to program my phone, give it to my Gen Z, or, give it to your kid, or, have them explain the tech to us. No, no, no. It's not even that complicated. We're better communicators, I would say,
I
overall
agree.
than the
Yep.
kids, right? Because we've had more situations where we've had to communicate and be a little more strategic and know and how to, and we understand nuance and all of that. And so that sort of gives us an edge, as far I believe.
Sure.
And so as long as you can talk and communicate, then you can AI. We're going to turn that into a verb. You can AI if you can talk. And so it really is easy.
What and how do people find out about your course?
Oh, well, thank you. You can go to Jen Lehner, and that's Lehner, JenLehner / Masterclass AI.
Perfect. And we'll put a link in the show notes and make sure that everybody knows how to get there. But I appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. I listened to an interview not too long ago by where Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, was being interviewed, and the guy that was interviewing him asked him, "What are your thoughts about AI? Is it going to take over the world?" And he said, "Yes, but there's an asterisk to it. You're going to be able to utilize that to really create all sorts of new things." He's like, think of the world before the iPhone came out. That everybody was accustomed to very small, capabilities in terms of text, and nobody ever thought the phone could ever get better, right? But look where it's come in just, a short period of time. He said if he had young kids today, what he would do is constantly have their headphones filled with podcasts and courses about AI. He would be providing them articles and books to read, and every free moment they would be studying something relative to AI, because getting out ahead of the tip of the skis, being knowledgeable and experienced, AI is not going to take the job of the people that know how to use the tool correctly. It's only going to enhance your capabilities, and there are going to be a lot of people that get left behind because the fear factor, and or they are just, they don't know where to start. So your course sounds like a very good place to get people that maybe aren't 100% comfortable with AI or haven't really looked into it, at least a little bit of exposure and opportunity to learn about it and not be so fearful of it.
Yeah, and if you don't sign up for my course, what I do recommend, for everybody, is there's some really good newsletters out there. I have a newsletter, but I subscribe to, gosh, a dozen newsletters, that will just keep you informed of, like, what's new, and, most of the good ones will have sort of like a little nice little tutorial or a prompt that you could try out yourself. And then YouTube, of course. I mean, there's just no shortage of information out there. I mean, the problem is actually that there's no shortage of information in a lot of ways, right? Because it is a tsunami of information that is coming our way. But find a couple of people who teach to your liking, who you feel know what they're talking about, who you trust, and just maybe stick to one or two voices and start there. And you'll be on your way.
I love it. And you're clearly one of those voices that I think people need to tune into. And I noticed on your website that you actually are an adjunct professor for Cleveland State University, talking about tools like AI and digital marketing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Actually, I need to update my website. So I'm not an official adjunct with Cleveland State anymore. I mean, I might still be
Now
in
you're the
there.
provost. Now you're running
No, I'm the dean.
it.
No, but I do teach from time to time at the College of Charleston in South Carolina in their business school.
Okay.
And not even as an official adjunct. They'll just have me come in and talk about
Nice.
AI, because you know what? Again, to the point of uh, us having an edge. When I was there most recently, and this was probably about a month and a half ago, and I was teaching a class on AI, and I started the class by asking how many of you are using Chat GPT? And of course, they all raised their hand.
Yep.
And then I said, how many of you have heard of Claude? One person. One person raised their hand out of all those kids. How many of you heard of Notebook LM? How many of you have heard of, why is that happening?
I
How many?
have no idea. Apparently,
Okay.
those tools are really happy you're mentioning
So
them
I know
because,
it does understand it'll do that.
oh,
I know
that's pretty
that one,
awesome.
but I don't know what in this.
Ah,
I don't know how we got the balloons.
I
Maybe
have no idea. That
the
was like, wow. For those of you that are going to hear this on the podcast, we just had some very unusual graphics, balloons and bubbles that just popped up, and we don't know why, but
Yeah,
it's still
just
cool.
yeah, Zoom recognized our or where are we? StreamYard
Yeah, yeah,
recognized our,
StreamYard.
hand gestures.
That's funny.
Um, but, yeah, they didn't know they don't know these tools. I mean, just because 'cause they're young doesn't mean that they're, way, that they necessarily know what's going on. They're busy trying to get those kids in particular, they're busy with their schoolwork, and they're not out there investigating and learning necessarily about all the AI tools. So to your point, Steve, like, and what what's his name? Reid
Reid
Hoffman?
Hoffman, yeah.
What he said about what he would advise and, with his kids is and, Mark Cuban recently just said the exact same thing, but, that's for all of us, like, listen to the podcast, read the newsletters, all of that.
Yeah, don't sleep on it. That's for sure. How have you seen, obviously, the AI was an important point that we wanted to talk about today, but how have you seen AI affect what you're advising your clients in terms of their marketing and brand building for their businesses?
With marketing and brand building, there's just so much opportunity, but the place where we start is, like, to figure out where the bottlenecks are. And then, see if there's a place where AI can free them up, right? Because isn't that what we all want? Like, we
Sure.
want to spend more time doing what we wanna do and less time doing what we don't wanna do. And so, I mean, for example, I have an automation, set up where I just pick up my phone and I open up, um, voice notes on my iPhone, and I just will say something like, I was just thinking about what the future means for new graduates, 2025 graduates in this world of AI. Like, what does the job landscape look like for them? Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
This is like my brain dump.
Brain dump. Yep.
Just one thought. I take that recording and then I put it into a Google Drive folder right here on my phone. I just hit export
Yep.
to Google Drive. When it goes into that folder, I've got a AI automation set up. So that triggers many things to happen. And what happens is, I've got it set up so that from that one thought, it will develop it and create absolute finished copy for a podcast episode, a script, a YouTube script, a LinkedIn post, a Facebook post, an Instagram post, a reel, um, an email, a newsletter, like literally everything, but and the image to go with it. And it takes it all over to a Trello board, and I'm telling you, this is good content. This isn't that junk when we all first heard about ChatGPT and we went over there and asked it to write a haiku, like, it's or a song or a poem. It's not that,
Yeah.
because there's a way, and I show my clients how to get their AI to sound like them, to not sound like AI.
Yep.
So by the time now it's always in draft mode. I don't let it just publish without me, approving it. But my gosh, that's hours and hours and hours, days of work
Yeah.
actually that I just did, like, just real quick, having just a little voice note.
Yeah.
So that's just one example.
Well, even thinking through that scenario where as entrepreneurs, we tend to have these ideas and we would often go, let's say, to an agency model back in the day and say, this is what I'm thinking. I need you guys to develop all these, all the content and the resources. You would be looking at 2 or 3 weeks of time between the time that you were excited about the idea to their actual deliverables and probably, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars of cost that you've just boiled down into a routine process that, you can decide to, say, yes, I'm going to use it or no, I'm not. And right from there, that automation creates so much efficiency for you as the business owner and the business leader. That's huge.
Oh my gosh. I mean, and just the deep research that is now available where you could go in and ask it to, you know, research any topic, or if you're thinking of a new vertical in your business, or just a new offer or a new product or a new business altogether, to get it to go out and do the kind of research that McKinsey consultants charge hundreds of thousands of dollars for.
Yeah.
Like your AI really can do that and do it well for you. And then and be your thought partner in business. And that is kind of the way to think about it, is like, what are you what are the different job roles I can create? And let me create a little robot for each of those roles. So you have your finance department, your marketing department, and each of those can be AI doing and you can even, like, from there even go down into micro tasks. Like I have a custom GPT, and the instructions that I put inside of it, which, by the way, you learn how to create a custom GPT in my course, and it will take you all of 5 minutes. It sounds fancy. It's not. It's if you could write an email, you could create a custom GPT.
Yeah.
So I just open up create, and the instructions I give are, um, how to take my YouTube script and create the title. Okay. And but it's not, there's more detailed instructions than that. I
Sure.
want to have 10 choices for the title. I want it to be highly clickable, like a Huffington Post article or a BuzzFeed article. I want it to make people feel compelled to click on it. Like, I've got all these, and then I give examples of good headlines. I only have to do that one time. Now it sits in this little custom job role of my title creator. And then all I have to do is paste the script into there without any explanation at all. It's literally just copy and paste. It spits out the thing that I need. And I can stack those GPTs. I could call them in one by one, to do the next thing, and then the next thing, and the next thing, and without any explanation, because they've already been set up for that.
That's incredible. Oh, I love that. I love that. Are the clients that you're working with today, are they, what's the general attitude of the folks that find you? Are they skeptical about AI? Are they, they just need somebody to hold their hand and help them get going? Or they're like genuinely excited, but they really need the core expertise that you bring to the table. And it's like, hey, I've got this, but I need somebody to basically expertly execute on it.
I've got some people, I would say, that come begrudgingly. They might not be the owners of the company themselves, but the owners have said to them, like, you need to figure out AI for us. And so they kind of come dragging their feet. Hopefully, after a little time with me, that they get excited when they see how doable, easy, it all is. But mostly, the majority of the people that I work with, they're super excited, and they understand, because they're hearing it from all directions, that there's a lot of opportunity. They just don't know how to best leverage it in their business. Like, because the thing is, on the one hand, I want everybody to explore and play with all the things that they're learning about. On the other hand, you could create more work for yourself and bog yourself down if you're chasing things that really you don't need for your business. And so, unless you're doing what I'm doing, which is you're becoming an AI educator, you don't need to know and do all the things,
Yep.
right? And so, that is problem, or I would say challenge number one, is like figuring out what makes sense for your business in your life.
Well, that's where I think a lot of businesses really struggle, just based on my experience being kind of a consultant in a relationship strategy, is the folks that are in trying to figure out how to scale or grow their brand. They don't they don't know how to get there, right? So they
Mm.
need someone like you to say, okay, let's kind of take a clean sheet approach here, and let's figure out, just because you're hearing AI is really cool, or that you need a huge social media presence and maybe you need a social media manager, doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you want to do. And I like
Right.
the approach that you take, and what I've gathered from your website is it's very cause and effect, very, results oriented, very intentional. But there are things that you can do with intentionality that that you'll see results on. And that's where people, are probably no doubt beating a path to your door, because most of them don't know how to even get to that first step, right? And by the way, I can't see anybody begrudgingly not want to talk to you because
Oh,
you're
that's
so,
you're very generous, Steve.
yeah,
Thank you.
just you're so fun and informative in every aspect, whether it's all the, lots of great content that you're putting on your website, but your podcast, your videos that you put on YouTube, you're creating a whole lot of ripples out there just by providing great content for people that, you know, you don't care whether they necessarily convert to become a client or not. You're putting this expertise out there. And I mean, anybody that gets introduced on their podcast by Gary Vaynerchuk, I mean, must be doing something right. But it's very much like his philosophy, right? Give, 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 then ask, and
Yeah.
give value, create opportunities and wins for the folks that you ultimately want to serve. And when they see the results, they'll want to come back and they'll want more of that.
Yeah, I mean, any of us, whatever our industry, you can never go wrong with that model, right?
Yeah,
Just give and help and give, and yeah, and the right people will come back and
I
do
love that.
business with you. So,
Well, I mentioned your podcast, the Front Row podcast for entrepreneurs. That you've got some great episodes in there. Tell me about that, how that came about, because I think you're on episode 96, if I'm looking at this correctly. I mean,
yep.
you've got quite a bit of content out there. How did that come about? Is that just the natural extension, or you get so excited and geek out that you got to be able to share more to a wider audience that way?
Oh, no, it's a funny story how that came about, and honestly, I should be at 596 episodes right now, so I have not been consistent with that podcast. I do a daily flash briefing that's like a 3-minute podcast that you can hear
Oh,
on Amazon Alexa and Google Home, and that's just like the news, and I've been so consistent with that one, but my big podcast, I haven't been consistent, but I will tell you, it's pretty good. I was out for a walk on a Sunday, and I was listening to Gary Vaynerchuk on James Altucher's podcast.
yeah, I love
And
James.
I do too. And they were chatting and uh, just out of nowhere, as he often does, Gary Vaynerchuk was like, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. Anybody who starts a podcast right now and publishes 3 episodes, I'm going to come on their show. And James Altucher was like, "Yeah, I'll come on their show too." And he's like, "All you gotta do after you get your 3 episodes up, send me a tweet and use the hashtag, Hey Gary and James, I started." I was like, "Oh my god." I knew that was always sort of like part of my plan. I did know that one day I wanted a podcast. I just didn't want to do it that Sunday. But I made a U-turn, and here's my thought process. I was like, "Well, there's a gazillion people listening to this episode. They're all going to start tweeting at him. They're all going to go and do this. I shouldn't even bother." But then I remembered something really important, and that is, and this is one of those things you only get as you get old, is that because you start to learn more about humans. And one thing I've learned is that what we're most humans don't take action like that,
Yep.
right? You
Nope.
can't assume most people really don't take action like that. So I was like, I'm going to go home and do this. So I watched some YouTube videos on how to create a podcast. Um, and I got 3 episodes recorded, just I think me talking about whatever. They're horrible. And and then I started tweeting, and I kept getting ignored, and I kept tweeting, and I kept getting ignored. And so I decided, well, I'm going to go after James. So he wasn't easy to get. He wasn't easy to get either, but I got James Altucher. I got him on my podcast. He was so wonderful. He would have stayed another hour. I had him for an hour. He would have stayed another hour, but I ran out of questions and I was so nervous the whole time but he was so generous, so wonderful. So then what I did was, I started tweeting again at Gary, and I was like, "Well, James kept his word. What about you?" And, and then, his assistant reached out to me finally, and, but then I got ghosted again for another long period of time, so I went back to that podcast where I originally heard them, and I cut out the part where he made the promise. And then I tweeted it and I was like, "Well, I guess you're not gonna keep your word." And James, I mean, I really just publicly shamed
Oh,
him essentially. So they booked it. So they booked
I
it. He
love
came
it.
on the show, and because here's what I knew, and this is why I went after it so hard, is that it was like I knew if I got Gary Vaynerchuk, who was the hottest name at that time in digital
Sure.
media, if I got Gary Vaynerchuk on my show, I could get anyone on my show. They wouldn't necessarily look at how many downloads I had. They would just see I was legit. It would legitimize my podcast. And guess what? It totally did. And that's why I asked him before we concluded. I said, "Will you please record the intro to my podcast?" And so he says, like, "Hey, it's Gary Vaynerchuk, and you're listening to the Front Row Entrepreneur with our girl Jen." And so that's the intro. And then I went after Seth Godin. Seth Godin came on. I mean, I've got
Whoa.
everybody. I got everybody. They all came on my show because I had these. But meanwhile, they didn't look at my downloads. I had no downloads. I had no. But they came and they spent time with me, and it was great. And then eventually, I built up, some listeners. I haven't done myself any favors by not being consistent with that show. I'll tell you, that's shame on me, but anyway, that's a very long answer to your
That's
question,
awesome.
but that's how the podcast came to be.
Well, so you mentioned it though. How do people get the morning briefing from you on their Alexa? Can you tell us?
If you go in, they don't make it easy. If you go into the app on your phone, into
Okay.
your Alexa app, and you go into the skills section, and you just start typing in front row entrepreneur, it should show
Okay.
up.
Okay.
I think you can actually subscribe to the briefing now via all the podcast channels too. And I don't know how you get it. Google Home, what my listeners are telling me is that they just signed up for tech news to get those announcements. And then I'm
Uh-huh.
somehow like lumped in with the tech news. But so I should know how to tell you how to hear those, but I don't really even know. And you could also ask Alexa. You could say,
Yeah.
"Alexa, play the Front Row Entrepreneur Flash Briefing," and see what happens with that.
Okay. We're gonna all try that. I mean, all my Ripplers are gonna do this. We're gonna plug in for sure because
Thank
you
you.
you are absolutely brilliant. I could talk to you all day long. I noticed on your description that you were voted most likely to be class clown. So if you weren't doing this, what you're doing right now, I definitely think that there's like you should be a comedian because
Oh,
you are
yeah,
funny
no.
as hell.
I'm not, and I don't, and I'm always the last one to, I mean, I'm goofy, yes, but I'm always the last one to get the joke. 5 minutes later, I'll laugh and say, "Oh yeah, like now I get it," and I always feel so dumb. So, but thank you. You are very generous, Steve.
Well,
Very
see, when you're
generous
in the
host.
front of the room, you tell the jokes. It doesn't matter whether you get them or not. You're going to crack people up regardless. So
Wow.
well, so like I said, I could talk to you all day long, but I know you're super busy. But I always like to finish these interviews, and we're definitely going to have to do a follow up to this because you're just, oh, this is so much fun. But I like to ask some Ripple connection questions just to give people a little sense of kind of who you are a little bit outside of the business. Even though you were moving around at the age of 7 a lot, it sounded like, and you weren't part of the witness protection program, so that's good to
Not that
know.
I know of.
Not that you know of. What did you think you wanted to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be an actress, and I wanted to play Laura Ingalls Wilder, on Little House on the Prairie. And I really I wrote her a letter, and I just said, "If you're ever sick, I can fill in for you," because I had buck teeth, and I mean, and I had braids, and I had freckles, and I looked like her, and I just wanted to be, but I mean, that's when I was very young. I wanted to be an actress. And then I thought about being a journalist before, when I went to college, and I majored in sociology. So I don't know. I don't know where all this came, how I ended up here really, but those were just all things that interested me at the time.
Did you ever get a response back on the offer
Never.
to be the stand-in?
I got zero response.
Well, apparently you should have used Twitter back then.
Now, if there was Twitter, that would have been a different
Yeah, you would
story.
have been like, oh, I'm not giving up on this. I'm going to be a stand-in.
Totally.
You could have been like the long lost cousin that they never met, right? I
Right.
could see you
Why
being on the
not?
episode. That is
Yes.
so awesome. That's my wife's favorite show, so she's going to get a kick out of that for
She has
sure.
good taste. That was a
Yeah,
good show.
we went to actually a couple of years ago in when we were in Missouri. We
South
went to
Dakota.
the Laura Ingalls Wilder farm.
Yes, we were near there, and whoever I was with at the time, I couldn't convince them to make the stop over there, but, yeah,
It
that's
was
an
either that or the
attraction.
big red ball of thread. You got to do pick one, right? But No, it was, I did not want to go. I went very reluctantly. We had, our kids at the time were too young, boys, and they did not want to go. And we got overruled. And I'm glad that, we went. It was really, really fascinating and amazing to see, just how much they were able to preserve of, her actual history and, her technically her home and, how much of the actual story that made it on TV was actually just true. So it's pretty
Wow.
cool.
Yeah,
Very,
that
very
is
cool.
cool.
So that's what you wanted to be at 7. What about now when you grow up?
When I grow up now, I wanna do more teaching actually, like,
Okay.
when I'm done with this bit I mean, I'm gonna be doing this for until I just don't like it anymore, but then I wouldn't mind being like a full-time professor.
Okay.
Um, I love spending time with those kids, and I just it just really I just always feel so great after I teach a class.
That's awesome. I love that. I could see that your energy would be infectious and you would be one of the cool professors without question.
Well, I feed off of their energy, you know,
Yeah.
like, they're so great, and the other thing that's wonderful about spending time, with college students is that they're not, even though there's a lot to worry about right now, they're just not jaded.
Yeah.
They are excited, and they're optimistic, and they're bright, and they're kind, and they're smart, and it just makes you feel really good about
Yeah.
things, you know?
Yeah. That's good. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I feel the same when I get an opportunity to speak at a college campus. It's a lot of people say a lot of things about our future generation of workforce, but the what's coming. I think we're all going to be very well taken care of, and there's going to be some really, really amazing talent that comes out. I'm
Agree.
just always blown away by their energy and their enthusiasm and their willingness to be open to new ideas and new thoughts. Right.
Yes, for sure.
So, how do you like to spend your time when you're not thinking? Because it sounds like your brain never shuts off, kind of like mine. But when it does and it allows you to relax, how do you spend your time?
Well, I'm in a local hiking club, and I love that, so I do a lot of hiking. When I'm in Charleston, I have a kayak, I spend a lot of time on my
Oh,
kayak. I love to read. These days, I do a lot of audiobooks because I
yeah,
can't stand to sit still and read, and so I listen when I go out on walks, and I like to cook and, nothing too exciting, kinda like your regular old pastimes. Oh, I learned how to, not that it's something you learn because it's so stupid easy, but, needlepoint. Yeah,
ah,
so who knew?
I don't
I mean,
know. I tried it one time. I think my grandmother made me try it, and it's not stupid easy for me.
well, you might have been doing, like, cross stitch or embroidery, like,
Yeah,
that's
that kind of
harder,
sounds
or
like yeah,
crochet or something. This is
yeah.
literally like coloring in a coloring book, like, the canvas has the color, and then
Oh, okay.
you go up and you go down and you follow the color, but it's very relaxing, and when I'm doing that, I am listening to an ebook or I'm listening to something on TV, and it's not good for fitness, but it is very relaxing.
I love that. What book have you read that made a huge impact on your life?
Oh, well, there's 2 books that completely changed my life. They weren't necessarily good books, but, the first one was when I was 29, and it was, Alan Carr's Easy Way to Quit Smoking, and I
Ah,
was a smoker from when I was 16 until that time, and I had never tried to quit, um, and I read that book, and and I quit.
that's
And so I
cool.
recommend it to everybody. I mean, I hate myself that I ever did that, because even though I've been quit all these years, I'm always afraid, when I go for my physical, I'm just waiting
Sure.
for the news, because I mean, what a stupid thing to do. And then the other book 9.5 years ago I read was This Naked Mind, which
Mm,
is not about quitting drinking necessarily, but it's this woman's story of she does all this research of basically the negative effects of alcohol on your brain, and,
okay.
um, and by the end of it, I just thought, well, I never felt like I had a problem with alcohol necessarily, but I can for sure say that nothing ever good came out of it, like, I
Yeah.
always felt bad, even if I only had 1 glass of wine, I always
Yeah.
felt especially the older I got, like, I had a hangover the next day,
Yep.
I was tired. I just didn't like, I just didn't like the way I felt. So I'm like, let me just go a while and see how this works for me. And I never ever said I'm not drinking again. To this day, I don't tell people I'm a non-drinker, or I quit drinking. I just say, like, if they ask me if I want to drink, I think about it and I'm like, do I want it? And always the answer is no, because I always think, well, we know now that even a couple of drinks affects your brain health,
Yep.
and I'm going to feel lousy,
Yeah.
and I don't want to feel lousy. So I just keep saying no, but do you know what I mean? Does that make
Yeah.
any sense? So anyway, I've been saying no for 9.5 years, but it was because of that book, and I never felt better in my life. Like, it really made such a huge difference on my life, because I just, and I do, I'll be honest, like, I feel a little smug when I'm with my friends who are like totally, like, getting hammered, and like, we're out and they're on their fourth glass of wine, and
Yeah.
and the next morning everybody's like, ugh, and I'm
Ah.
thinking, well, I'm going for my run. Um,
And they're
so
cursing your name.
yeah. So, and I'm up early and I'm feeling great. So, so yeah, I would say those two books, and then, business wise, like the 4 Hour Work Week was,
Yeah,
made
Tim
a big
Ferriss. Yeah.
impression on me. There's so many though. There's so many.
I love it. And it sounds like you're a big audiobook, listener, which I am as well. Cause older I get, the less inclined I am to sit in a chair and read a book. Although I love books, I will go get the book, even if I bought the audiobook, but
Yeah, me too. If it's a
yeah,
book that was really good, I want it in my library. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. I'm the same way.
Well,
What would you,
what book
oh,
changed your life?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually, there's been several, but one of the first ones is a Midwesterner that I got to meet that actually inspired me to write my book in the first place. Harvey McKay. He wrote a book called Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. It was a business book, mainly what he calls the McKay parables, essentially tips and ideas that he put into practice that made him very successful. He owned an envelope manufacturing company out of Minnesota. And my dad brought it home. He was an engineer. Um, they'd had somebody come in and do a presentation or whatever, and he had an extra copy. He said, "Hey, I think, I had an interest in business early on. I was involved in DECA in high school and very active in understanding what entrepreneurship was about. My dad didn't understand any of that, worked at a corporation and never wanted to ever own his own business. So he gives me this book and I read it and I read it and then I read it and then I read it. It just kind of became my Bible. So fast forward several years later, many years actually later, I had sold a company, and a friend of mine was responsible for our local entrepreneur organization here in Austin, and they were bringing Harvey in to do a presentation. And she said, "Hey, we get an opportunity to actually meet him at the reception ahead of time. So would you? You're gonna be my plus one because I know you're a huge fan." Because then I read all of the, I think his other book title that I really loved was "Beware of the Naked Man Who Gives You His Shirt," right? And then just alternative mode. I mean, just he's a
Love
phenomenal
that.
guy. And so I go to this event, and he was actually promoting his book called Fired Up for people that had lost their jobs. Connie Chung is an example. He had interviewed Connie, and she had been, kind of waylaid off of the CBS Evening News. And he profiled a bunch of well-known people and how they turned what was perceived as failure into a positive. And so, he's signing the books, not really talking to anybody. And I just happened, my heart was pounding because I'm a super fan, right? And I said, "I'm actually writing my own book right now, and you're the inspiration behind it." And he was like, "Wait, what?" He's like,
Wow.
"Here's your book, kid, but go stand over there." And I'm like, "Oh, am I in trouble? I don't know what to do." And my friend at the time, she was like, "Yep, see, you're rippling right there." And so he comes over and he talked to me for 20 minutes. That they cut the line. He was going to doing this big keynote after dinner and whatnot. Spent like 15, 20 minutes with me talking. And he said,
Wow.
"Best advice I could give you is don't go to a publisher and don't get an agent." He's like, "If I had everything to do all over again, I would do it all on my own." And I said, "Well, that's kind of what I was thinking." He said, "I tell you what," he gives me this napkin, "write your address down. I'm going to send you something. Couple probably a couple weeks later, I'd actually even forgot he had asked for my address. This big envelope shows up, and it's all these handwritten notes from Harvey and all these articles about how to make your book in your own terms and to be successful as a self-published author. I mean, it must have been 50 pieces of content that he had collected and then told me why he was giving this one to me or what to do with this one.
Wow.
And I was so honored. So of course, I decide I'm going to go back to the well. Like when my book's coming out, I'm like, would you do like like the intro or testimonial or something for it? And he's like, no, I can't do that. Part of the reason I told you to self-publish is these publishers, they're jerks, right? They won't let you do anything without, control. And the lesson I learned from him is if you're going to do a book and you were going to eventually become a speaker, you own the front of the room, but then you also own the back of the room. And he said the one thing that he had learned is he worked a lot and very hard to make other people money through the publishing business. And he said, you end up doing all the work anyway, but at least this way you get to keep the profits. He said that was one of the things that he was prohibited from doing, but really appreciated me thinking of him. Stay in touch. And I figured, sure, that's just, probably his assistant telling me. But when the book came out, I sent it to him. He called me, said, thank you so much. It was really honored to get it. And then believe it or not, I think he is now 98. He's up there. Just came out with another book. This was 2022. And I happened to reach out to him and I said, hey, with the new book coming out, I kind of swung for the fences like you did with Gary and James and Seth. And so would you come on the podcast? And he said, oh, I don't do podcasts anymore. He goes, but I'm going to have my assistant reach out to you. And the assistant reached out and said, we want to send you an autographed copy of the new book. Harvey's very honored you offered, asked him to be on the podcast, but he just doesn't do those things anymore. And, send me your address and I'll send you this book. And sure enough, like a week and a half, 2 weeks later, the book shows up and he's like, Steve, still rippling.
Oh, wow. He remembered. What a nice guy.
He'd have to be one of my favorites. I also I'm a big fan of Malcolm Gladwell. I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss. I like anybody that pushes you and stretches you, right? And those are the things that really I enjoy the most. And so those would be a handful of mine.
Thank you. Great.
Yeah. Well, so last couple of questions. What is your superpower? So apart from being so easy to talk to, because that's definitely one of your superpowers.
Yeah. No, thank you. My superpower is that I'm able to take complex information and simplify it for people.
That's awesome. That's a great superpower. I wish I had that.
I think you do. I think you have lots of superpowers.
I tell people, I was just talking to somebody for my software company today. I'm like, I'm the CEO, but really I'm the CDG. I'm the chief dumb guy. So if I can break it, I'll break it. If I can make sense, anybody would understand it.
No, I don't know about that.
The last question, well, three questions. This one is, if you had the opportunity to put a billboard up with a message that everybody would see on the way to work or to school or on the way home, what would that message be?
The message would be, I mean, I hate to steal a company slogan, but it really is just do it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things underneath that. It's like, just do it because no one is paying attention to you. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think
Yeah.
it took me, 50 some odd years to sort of really understand that, like, people are too concerned about themselves. And if you do it and you mess up or you make a fool out of yourself, like, really nobody's paying attention to you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so,
Yeah.
and it's very freeing in a way. So it's like and we're all going to die. So, like, just do it because of that too. That's the other, like, subheading, like,
I
just
love
do it because you're going to die.
That's a good one. I like that. When you hear the phrase, the ripple effect, what does that conjure up for you? What does that make you think of?
Community.
Ooh.
Yeah, because it's success by yourself is just it it's it's actually an oxymoron. Like, we need community, and and what you get back is exponential to what you put in. And so we're building community right now, and we
Yep.
did it because we were connected by a mutual friend.
Yeah.
And so, and we're building community even more because now people are listening, and so the ripples just keep going. And I do love to ponder it, right? Like, because I mean, to the literal ripple in the pond, that where does it end?
Yeah.
Because even at the edge of the pond, it doesn't end there because it splashes up onto a blade of grass, which, I mean, not to get all like out there on it, but yeah, I love your ripple effect.
I love it. Well, part of it will end up on that grass, but the other part always ripples back to you as the originator, right? So we all have in our control the ability to make, a positive or a negative ripple on the daily, right? We get to
Love that.
choose. And so I've always been a big fan of sort of that imagery because at the end of the day, no matter what you do, even if you don't see the immediate payoff, that ripple will come back to you in ways that you can't expect it. So,
That is so true. I love that.
yeah. Last question is what ripples can I be looking to create for you?
I think we're doing it. I mean, you can't do a single I mean, I wouldn't dream of asking for a single thing. You've been like the most generous podcast host ever. And I really appreciate all your kind words and introducing
Uh,
me to your audience. I mean, wow, I'm just blown away. So we're doing it.
well, we're going to promote the heck out of this. I am so absolutely grateful that you agreed to be a part of this, and thank you for your patience yet again as I navigated some challenging schedule issues relative to my dad. But I really appreciate the patience to get this thing on. Before we let you go, please tell everybody where to one get that course, and then where you best want them to follow you.
Great. Thank you. So go to the website, JENLEH as in Henry, N as in Nancy, JENLEHNER.com/, masterclass AI.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Okay.
if you forget the slash and you just get to the website, I think there's something up at the top that will send you to the course. And there should be a place for you to also get on the email list so you get the newsletter, the AI newsletter. And then what was the other thing? Oh, follow me. I would say LinkedIn, or let's connect on LinkedIn,
Okay.
um, or Instagram. LinkedIn is J, like you put in the whole LinkedIn link, and then it's
Yep.
J Lehner, Lehner.
Okay.
And then Instagram is Jen, JEN _Lehner,
Okay.
Lehner.
Awesome. Well, we will make sure to post those in the show notes and will be on screen for those of you that see the video. I am so thankful for our time together, Jen. It was so great. Thank you so much. And, guys, we'll be back again with another episode of the Ripple Effect podcast very soon. But until then, Jen, ripple on.
Thank you. Thank you so much.